Welcome back to the Ian S Hoover Show. I'm sitting here with my buddy Dave Trafican. How we doing, buddy?
Good morning. I'm doing very well. How are you?
Not too bad. So for the audience that doesn't know you, let's go ahead and start with who you are and what you do.
Sure. I my name is David Trafican. Do you want like a quick
Yeah,
blurb
quick
about
bio. But do your BNI 60 second.
me? Fresh off of it. I got to make sure this is good. David Trafican, from the Pittsburgh area, born and raised. For the last 14 years, I've been in the financial services industry as a financial advisor slash financial planner. I work with individuals, families, and business owners accomplishing their goals. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
I'm going to start back because I know that you have a little bit of a similar background as in you played sports.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that sports has a huge impact on how we are as business folks, business owners, running our business, all that good stuff. So you played football,
That's correct. I've played it, I've coached it, I've officiated it. I have the whole perspective.
been involved in all three phases.
Yes.
And you played, if I remember correctly, the University of Edinburgh, right?
No, Clarion.
Oh, Clarion. How
Clarion.
am I mixing up my tiny schools?
That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I only played for a year, but had a scholarship up there and wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be and decided to step away from it. I officially said I retired.
Did you hold a
My
press conference?
in to my parents, yes. I'm like, see these cleats? They're hanging up. I'm done. But
It's a sad day when your childhood dream comes to an end because we've all been there.
yeah,
I thought for sure I was going to be in the NFL, and then
yeah.
like you get to that next level, and you're like, oh shit, these
No,
guys are way bigger, way stronger, way faster than me.
that's what a D1 athlete looks like. Got it. Got
That's
it.
what I'm not. Okay,
Okay,
got it.
got it.
Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think that like if I was maybe more dedicated, I could have maybe been in a little better shape. But the other thing is they wanted me to play other positions that I didn't
Right.
want to play. So
Well, I think that's the trap. I don't think, especially when you're young, I don't think you truly realize the dedication or what it takes, or you don't get the big picture of what's trying to be done. You're kind of focused in the day-to-day stuff. Um, Sorry about that.
phone's blown up.
Yeah. So you're focused on the day-to-day stuff, and I think we lose sight of what's really going on big picture wise, and you don't understand it.
I'm kind of glad I retired early because my body is already a wreck. Like I have to do so much maintenance just to play pickup basketball a couple of days a week.
Yeah.
I can only imagine if I would have done 4 years of college football.
Yeah. I don't think people realize every play, you've got a car crash happening to some degree, especially I was a lineman, right? You, you know, not the running backs don't take a beating because they do, and the hits they take are more ferocious, right? But as a lineman, you don't get a playoff, right?
Yep.
You got another 300-pound guy that likes hitting people and wouldn't have had it any other way for a long time, though.
Yeah, I mean, I did not like playing line, and that's what they wanted me to move to. If I was going
Yeah,
to be any kind of a college level
yeah,
athlete, I was going to have to play offensive guard or center,
right,
which having a quarterback's hands under my butt
right,
wasn't something I was real into.
right.
But yeah, it's such an important thing because it teaches you leadership
Hmm.
and being part of a team and fundamentals and culture and all that. And that's definitely something that I'm not mad that I did it.
And I would add to everything you said, I completely agree on. I'd also add how to handle adversity, right? Because you have to learn how to be gritty. You have to learn how to make the best of any situation and fight through the pain or any of the cliches you want to use. That's what I think I do exceptionally well is, okay, we have the problem. Let's move through it. How do we work through it?
Problem solving.
That's it.
Yep. Yeah, it's important. Actually, my local high school team that my daughter's on the
Hmm.
band just got their rears handed to them in
They did that to a lot of people.
yeah. They finally feel what it's like.
Yeah,
But I think it'll make
yeah,
them stronger for next year.
absolutely. You can't in life you're not going to win every single time all the time. So it's good to get checked every once in a while.
And they only have one more year of an extremely talented athlete. So we'll see if they can backfill in and be competitive after next year. So it'll be interesting.
With so part of officiating, we have access to a program called Huddle, and not every school uses it all the time, but I can go through and I can watch the games. And when you get to watch some top tier athletes in the whole state of Pennsylvania, it's always fun to go through and watch the playoff games, even though I wasn't able to make it. I was out of town, stuff like that. It's fun. It's a good time.
It is fun. Cold though, real cold this time around. I was freezing at Acrisure for the WPILL championship.
Yeah,
It was
my brother, they tricked me. I think I was hiking in 80-degree weather, and I don't have the body to hike, so I could have been sitting in Acrisure having some nachos, but I was in Arizona sweating my butt
with
off.
your Christmas shirt, the naked nipple pierced
Yeah,
shirt
no,
that you wore
yeah.
last year.
I have that stashed away for the
Somewhere.
appropriate moments. I only pull that out from my finest attire.
There was Clairton had a couple people on their side that had their shirts off.
Oh yeah,
I was intrigued by that. I was like,
yeah.
it's high school football, guys.
Yeah, I know that that was a heck of a game. I was reading, I didn't get to watch the highlights on it, but I was reading how they came back
Yeah, very good
and
game.
pulled it out. Yeah, you know, I like I said, I officiated, so I go and I try to read a ton about what the teams are doing. And Clareton, I think, gave up a total of 14 points the whole
I
season.
think it's including playoffs is 23 points. And
Yeah, I think regular season was 14, one of which was a fumble return for a touchdown, and I think the other touchdown was lower classmen that gave up that score. So, truthfully, I didn't expect them to lose because they have a tradition of success, but Fort Cherry obviously did a heck of a job.
yeah, it was a really good game. Don't get me wrong, that both teams could have won that game
Sure,
very easily.
sure.
The thing that kind of shocked me the most, and we'll get off of football in a second, but the thing that shocked me the most is that there's back-to-back games. So that game, the championship, and then
Hmm.
the next round of states
Hmm.
where we played two teams that did not throw the football at all.
Really?
Clairton threw one pass, and it was a wide receiver screen,
Okay.
which is essentially an extension
Yeah,
of the run game.
yeah. One could argue that for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and in the game against Port Allegheny, they didn't throw the ball at all, not a single. But then again, their running back was getting about 37 yards per carry, so I don't think you
There's,
need to throw the
I
ball.
was just gonna say, sometimes you just want the ball in your best athlete's hand, and that kid will be going D1 somewhere,
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah, he's definitely gonna go D1. I think he had 3,000 yards rushing this year.
and he probably played like the first quarter and a half.
No, he played the whole game actually. I was
They
shocked.
had him in all four quarters
Yes.
because usually, one of the things you see is, you take a team like a Fort Cherry, right? Um, a lot of times they get a lead, they get the mercy roll in effect, and then you take out your star, so to speak. Now I know with 1A football, it's tough because there isn't much depth in 1A, but a lot of these kids, I think of Aliquippa, um, those kids they get up 35 points, they try to take them out to preserve their bodies, right?
Well, yeah, you got the state championship next game. You think they would have saved him, but no, he was in until 3 minutes left of the fourth quarter, and they were up 46 to
Yeah,
7 or something at that
yeah,
point. Pretty crazy.
yeah,
Anyway, so how did you get into like what were you doing after college, and how'd you get into financial advising?
yeah, for sure. So, for me, my path, um, and I think with most people in the world, you're not born thinking, "Hey, I want to be a financial advisor." Right?
Really? You know,
It's just a guess. I don't know. You got the astronaut, firefighter, police officer. That's probably what I thought about growing up, right? But yeah, so the path for me, once I realized that football had come to an end, I stepped away from university life and I was starting to go to CCAC. And what I knew is that I had to progress one way or another. I either had to progress through work by taking on leadership positions, or I had to go to school. And if you know me, I do not study very well for long periods of time. If it's a subject I like, I will nerd out on it and I will try to find every perspective I can, either affirming or detracting from the topic or the strategy or the concept, or whatever. So I got into the restaurant business. I worked at Smoky Bones out in Fraser Township. And from there, I started their, I guess, like management path type thing, and tried to work my way up at a young age. I mean, I was 20, 21 years old, realizing that school wasn't it for me at that point. So I needed to progress. Well, that quickly became tiresome, as the restaurant industry can be. You have all the wonderful things. You develop tremendous relationships. You make good money. At 20 years old, making probably 55,000 with no living at mom's house, right? It's like life is great. Um, but when you're trying to obviously look at your future, you gotta find things that you're passionate about. So the one time I had a conversation with my grandmother, kind of talking about like who had a positive influence on her life. And I'm a believer um, that there's different people in your life for different reasons. One of the people she mentioned was a financial advisor that she worked with a pretty well-known firm, and he helped her accomplish her goals. And I thought that was very profound and interesting, and I started to look into it, um, and one of my regulars when I was working at Smoky Bones, he worked for an insurance company that he was like, "Hey, have you ever thought about getting into sales, getting into insurance?" So interviewed with a couple different people, ended up selecting and working with the guy that I had a relationship with, um, got into the business, and and really found it satisfying and self-fulfilling to help people accomplish their goals. Um, so I guess the introduction to the industry was kind of two parts. One is my grandmother's experience working with an advisor, and then secondly, the gentleman that he was one of my regulars. He loved Brunswick stew, is what it was. He loved the beer and the Brunswick stew. That's what he always had. And so one of my regulars, he was talking to me about getting into the business. Was it exactly what I expected? No, I don't think that. What I'll say is it's entrepreneurship without having to build this, right? Yeah, the office space was provided for me, stuff like that. The products are provided for me, but learning, kind of completely diving in, I completely left the restaurant business. I was all in, putting in. I always jokingly say the half days, either the first 12 hours or the last 12 hours of the day, right? Um, Putting in that time to grow my clients, and that's kind of how it happened.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to the latest episode of the Ian S Hoover Show. If you're enjoying this content, please follow me on social media at Ian S Hoover on X, TikTok, YouTube. Let's connect and collaborate. Thanks for tuning in. How long did it take you to get to a point where you were making a decent living? Because I think that's one of the things that most people don't realize when they do a career shift, especially into something like a financial advisor or a real estate agent or something like that, where you have to build your business from the ground up. It takes time.
Not only does it take time, but also you have to have the right business model. Um, what I'll say is that with the original firm that I worked with, they didn't have all sources of income streams that you could have, right? So in the advisory space, you can sell wealth management, you can do annuities, you can do insurance, and the way that you get your income, each contract pays differently. Sometimes it's a shot in the arm up front where it's a larger income. Sometimes it's that consistent income. So it just really kind of depends on how you wanted to grow your practice. And initially, I didn't have that consistent residual, that renewal income, that rental style income, that passive style of income. So for me, it probably took 3 to 5 years to be able to say, "Hey, I've got this figured out. I have this figured out," and be really comfortable in my own skin as far as making things work. Now, to be fair, I was so when I joined my prior organization, I had immediate success. and I was in a leadership role pretty quickly. At one point, um, I was told that I was the youngest manager in that organization at a Fortune 500 company, and I also had a pretty large team. So often when you have success, they want to have you replicate that success. So um, to answer your question, about 3 to 5 years for me was saying like, hey, I've got this nailed down. And then I also made a transition, probably later than what I should have, to be honest. I was with my prior firm for over 10 years, but I didn't build that reoccurring revenue base. I didn't build that rental income. It would be more, I guess, flipping type of that those big checks that might come every other month, that might come once a quarter, whatever it is. Uh, I like the consistency. I like to gather more than hunt at this point.
Well, that's the unique thing about your industry versus mine.
Yep.
Similar to, well, I guess you do some insurance as well,
Sure.
probably, but is that you have options to have residual income.
That's right.
And like real estate sales, you don't. You
Right.
sell one and go
That's it.
find another one.
Yep.
There's no reoccurring
Yep.
sales revenue there, and that's what's unique. So
Hmm.
you would assume that your initial paycheck's lower than a real estate agent, but you're going to consistently get that revenue for maintaining their portfolio and all that.
That's correct. Yeah. I mean, and it depends on how you do your business, right? There are some folks that, dare I say, old school, that kind of have that, like I said, shot in the arm type of thing where their initial check's significant. Um, and then you have the other philosophy, and I think the right approach is probably a little bit of both, right? Um, but yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm of the mindset that I like to be able to help my clients, help my advisors, and I have that consistent idea of what my income's going to be.
I actually brought that up to my leadership. I actually talked to the CEO of T-Mobile at one point when I was in wireless. His name was
Yeah,
John Ledger. He's no longer the CEO there. I think he's actually going to run for president in 2028 for the
really.
Democrats. I'm pretty sure
Wow.
he's a unique leader. He brought the of course he did it right after I was tragically fired from T-Mobile. He installed the jeans and t-shirt like Apple Store vibe to the
Yeah,
team. I was of course like right after I'm not there. Now you guys don't have to wear fucking pink button up shirts and stuff.
you would have
Uh,
looked cute in that pink
I
button-up
did look
shirt.
kind of
I
cute.
believe
Yeah, the magenta it worked well for me.
it.
Khakis and magenta or black pants and magenta.
Yeah,
But I brought it up to him. I was like,
yeah,
if you want to create loyalty and
sure.
you want to keep your best performers, because they were looking at going to more of a team comp plan model at the time,
Got it.
which creates laziness. Like, why am I gonna, as a top producing salesperson, why am I gonna work harder to
Right,
sell when I'm sharing my
right.
commission, right?
I, yep.
So I combated that. And I said, you're gonna turn off the top producers,
Hmm.
and you're just gonna create a lazy environment.
Hmm.
Instead, what you should do is give everybody residuals.
Hmm.
I'm like, if you give even $1 per month residuals per
Right,
client that they bring in, per
right,
line they bring in,
right.
I mean, I would have at towards the end of my career, I would have had like $8,000 a month in residuals. I would have
Yeah,
never left that job
right.
because why would you leave that job
Sure,
if you just by showing up and clocking in, you're
sure,
getting your $8,000 check?
sure,
They could have paid a lot lower commissions and given residuals, and it would have created a humongous loyalty base. Like you would have
sure,
had 50-year employees there.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think comp plans need to, and where I work, I think that they do a tremendous job doing that. You need to incentivize the right habits, right? You don't want to um, have people confused on what makes them money, and with what you suggested, obviously that would accomplish good business because they're going to be in it, right? They're going to be in the plan for a long time, and that keeps you also there, which makes sense to me.
I mean, I wouldn't have been there either way because I got fired, but I mean, maybe I would have. It's a long story of why and how I got fired, but maybe I would have not went down the path I went to if I
Sure.
was getting my residuals. But
Yeah.
they clearly didn't think that was a good idea because it
Right.
didn't never even got brought up at like any kind of a think tank or anything
Yeah.
like that. So I was like, well, I guess either that or Ledger was too drunk when I told him the idea. One of the two. We used to get
Or
drunk pretty.
when he's on stage, remind him. Residual income.
Residual income for all.
Yeah.
So you've been into it 14 years, you said now?
Yeah, I started in February of 2010. So yeah, over 14 years, approaching 15.
And you have like a team of people underneath you now?
Yeah, so my role is a little bit different. So my job is to support advisors that work within our firm. So I'm part of a five-person team. I have two bosses that work above me, that run the whole state of Pennsylvania, and basically I'm in charge of the. If you cut Pennsylvania into thirds, I'm in charge of the western third from Erie down to West Virginia. So
Nice.
so um, so yeah, that's my role is to help grow our firm, support advisors, whether they're experienced, whether they're new to the industry. Sometimes support looks differently for different people. Sometimes it's answering my phone and letting them cuss me out for a little bit, and then they feel better and they go back to work. Or sometimes it's, like last night I was running a meeting with not a newer advisor. He's 3 years in, but he wanted my help in a little bit more of a sophisticated situation. So yeah, it's across the board from that standpoint.
What turned me off, because I did look at being a financial
Yeah,
advisor. Pretty sure I've told you this
yeah,
before, but I didn't like where my first meeting, before I even like got told like what the licensing process was.
sure.
They sat me down at a table with a piece of paper and they're like, write down 100 people you know.
Yeah,
And I wrote that down. They're like, there's your customer base. And I was
yeah,
like,
yeah,
what? No, like I'm
yeah.
not gonna just go like maybe once I know what I'm doing and like
Yep,
I'll slowly start to sell to people I know, but
sure.
like I'm not just gonna go start begging people I know for sales.
For
Like
sure. Yeah, I think that's an old school philosophy that is still unfortunately used today. Our organization, we try to use it as marketing momentum to attract your ideal client, which isn't the same as saying, "Hey, will you buy something from me?" Right? I don't think it would be unfair to ask people to say, "Hey, you know somebody in this situation, please connect them. I can help them. They have a problem that I can help solve." So yeah, you're not the only person I've ever heard that from, and like I said, I think some organizations still use that kind of idea. And it's unfortunate because unfortunately you get to be guilty by association sometimes, right? If you're an attorney, unfortunately, sorry for the attorneys listening, sometimes there's a bad connotation when you say you're an attorney, right? Same thing with insurance sales, right?
I mean I love my attorney, but I just had him on the podcast. He's
Yeah.
one of my good friends
Yeah.
too. But he's kept me out of hot water. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what they're there for. But the unfortunate thing is when do you deal with an attorney? It's usually in a bad circumstance,
it's true.
right? So it's not necessarily all, their fault that they have that bad rap, but sometimes you get that. Maybe a more fair one is the hand soap salesman at the malls. We'll use that as the analogy. But yeah, no, I completely understand what you're saying, and I get it. I could tell you, I think I was. I'm still not sure if my mom knows what I do for a living. I'm kidding. No, but I think for the first 7 years in the business, I don't think I had a piece of business from my family, and I don't want to say I did it by design, but that was something that I knew that if I was going to sustain, I needed to sustain outside of, my friends and family. So
I think there's a stigma too for like, because I think a lot of young folks are
sure,
trying to get into your business
sure,
and the older people don't want to listen to somebody who's in their 20s talk to them about life insurance or financial planning or
sure.
whatever. So how do you combat that for your young folks underneath you?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple different approaches to it. I got into business when I was 22, and I had that same problem, right? People would come to me, or I'd go to them, ask them for their business, and they would make comments like, "I've got socks older than you," right? Or my checkbook's older than you, right? Doesn't happen as much anymore as I get older and balder and fatter, but the grays are starting to come into the beard, so they don't say it as often. But often what I try to tell people to do is one, you're helping them align their actions to their goals. You don't need to be a certain age to help align people's actions to their goals. another thing is teamwork, right? So whether it's leveraging another mentor or business partner or somebody like myself on their appointments, I think those are two of the best ways to be able to help folks. And then I also always try to teach my advisors, you can challenge people's actions, but you can't challenge their perspective. So, for example, somebody wants to save for their college education for their kid or their grandchild, but they're not willing to put the money into it. You can challenge that, and you can be at any age challenging. Hey, you told me this is what's important to you, but you're not actively solving that problem. You know, when do you want to start implementing a solution? Um, I think that you can do that if somebody says, "Hey, college isn't important," look at me, I didn't do it, whatever. That you cannot challenge. So I think with those little tips and tricks, you're able to help overcome some of those potential obstacles. And I also think that it's important that you look the part. Um, I don't think that you can be brand new in the business, looking like, you just woke up and rolled out of bed and expect people to take your advice. You need to establish that credibility and again, when you take them through the process and you align their actions to their goals, usually you don't get that objection.
I try and tell my younger agents like you look young,
Hmm.
you are young.
Yeah,
You need to dress mature, right?
absolutely. Look
Don't
the
dress
part.
like I do
Yeah, look the
because
part.
I'm now pushing 40 and
Right.
I've earned the
Right.
right to wear jeans and a
Yeah.
t-shirt or
Yeah.
whatever to work. And even still to this day, if I'm meeting a brand new client who I
Yeah.
don't have any rapport with or
Sure.
wasn't referred to me directly,
Yep.
I'm gonna at least throw on a little bit nicer of a shirt and some nice shoes or
Yeah.
something, like try
Right.
and dress the part a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's probably my biggest thing, like look the part, you
Sure.
know?
And I also think, and this is my old school, like, I was, a big part of my life growing up was my grandfather. So he's instilled some of those old school type of values to me. I think the way that you dress when you meet people is a sign of respect as well, right? You show up, with a wrinkled shirt, with torn jeans and shoes that you played softball in a couple hours earlier. You're not gonna have the same presence as somebody that's, wearing it. You don't even have to wear the tie, but I'm just saying, like, wearing something nice, right? I think that um, people lie and say that looks don't matter. I think that looks do matter in the sense of you can create an environment of I'm the authority on the subject matter, and people respect that. Hey, you're well dressed, you're put together, you have an idea of what I'm trying to accomplish and some strategies to do that. People are going to be more receptive from somebody that's respected versus somebody that just rolled out of bed.
I also I have a funny story from about dressing. I was working with my mentor,
Yeah,
who's now my partner. I was working with
sure,
one of his close friends,
sure.
trying to find them a house. They were buying pretty nice house in Peters Township. They
Okay.
never ended up buying one, but
Yeah,
I showed them probably, I don't know, 50 houses.
sure.
And they were all like $1 million type houses,
Yeah.
right? Which I did
It's a
always.
beautiful area.
Yeah, great
Yeah,
area. I did always dress up and when I'm showing
sure.
these houses. Well, there was one time out and I'm in a snowstorm and I'm
Yeah,
like looking at properties because on the weekends in the morning that's usually what I did back then.
sure.
And he called me and he's like, "Hey, I want to get into this house like right now."
Hmm.
He's like, "It just popped up on the market. I don't think it's
Yeah,
gonna last long."
yeah,
And I was like, "Hey, I'm already out. Like I could show it to you, but
sure.
just like fair warning, I'm in
Yeah,
boots, sweatpants,
yeah,
sweatshirt.
sure.
I am not prepared for
Yeah,
this, right?"
right.
And he's like, "Oh, I don't care. Come on, right?"
Yeah,
And so I went and I showed him the house. And the next day, my mentor pulled me into his office and
yeah.
he's like, "Did you really show $1 million house in sweatpants, sweatshirts, and like
Yeah,
boots?" And I was
yeah,
like, "Yes, but." He's like,
yeah,
"There's no but there."
yeah.
And I'm,
Like, what do
he's
you want me to
like,
do? Drive home, take a shower, and come back out?
that's what
Yeah,
he said. He's like, just tell him that you can't do it until later, then
yeah,
make that excuse.
yeah,
And So like even though I had
Yeah.
already given the customer the upfront like knowledge that I
Right.
am not coming looking
Right.
like I normally do,
Right.
it wasn't him,
Right.
it was his fiance
Yeah. That's
that
it.
was like, I
Yeah.
can't believe he showed up like
Yeah.
that. And
Yep.
then like I'm sure he probably just didn't say to his fiance, "Oh, I told him to," right?
Right.
And
Right.
then it got back to Alex that I
Yeah.
showed up like that to show $1 million house.
Yeah.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out the latest episode of the Ian S Hoover Show. If you want to support me, please swing by Amazon, check out my new book, Short Term Memory Loss. It's a book about sales, but more importantly, it's a book about how to improve your life with sales. Even if you're not a salesperson, this book will help you improve your life. It'll help you get a promotion at your job. It'll help you negotiate a better deal on a car. You can use sales to improve just about every aspect of your life. So if you wouldn't mind, swing by Amazon, pick up a copy today. Or if you're an Amazon Kindle subscriber, it's free. Just check out the book. Let me know how you like it. Thanks.
Listen, that's we've all had egg on our face before. At some point you do something stupid and
I don't think it was stupid. I think
well,
I would still
their
handle
pers-
that
their
the same
her
way.
perspective of it was that was stupid.
Yeah,
Not,
100%.
yeah. And unfortunately, we live in the eyes of others sometimes when we're in service to others. So, listen, I've done things that I shouldn't have done from showing up to a place like, hey, I need to meet you now, and I'm like, well, you can sign right now. We can't like wait till Monday. Like, no, I'm leaving. Oh, okay. I guess I gotta drive out to see you now.
Yeah, yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, try and look the part, act the part, fake it till you make it, whatever you want to say it.
Yeah,
And that's one advice that I always give to the younger folks around me.
yeah,
These kids nowadays, they love sweatbands, man. Like
yeah.
they wear these like Nike sweatbands. They look pretty nice actually, but like not to show.
Tapered at the bottom, those ones.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and not what we wore growing up.
yeah.
A
The baggy ones.
little different.
Yeah,
Okay, if you were to start back over tomorrow, you're 22-year-old
sure.
Dave again. What would you do differently?
So when I got into the business, I got in basically with the lowest amount of licensing required. So it's kind of like showing up to, a gun with a knife, right? A gunfight with a knife, right? Um,
Is that like a Series 7?
Not even, no. All we needed was the life accident and health exam, and then I could sell, annuity products and fixed products, what they call fixed products. So that left me in a position where I could only offer a very narrow subset of what's available. So a lot of times, when you're talking to people, you need to be holistic. And what I'm saying is that I wasn't able to be as holistic because I didn't have the licensing to do so. So the other thing that I would have changed is that with my prior firm, I was only able to offer a small subset of products because of their limitations. So probably trying to work for an organization that allowed me to be a little bit more robust in my offerings from a product standpoint, lines of authority standpoint, would have been an advantage for me for sure, especially just trying to do the right things early in my career. If I would have taken that approach 14 years ago, I may never have gotten into the role that I'm in today just because it wouldn't have made sense for me. I think my alarm's going off. I'm just getting absolutely crushed on my messages here. So yeah, the that to me would have been a big difference. I think I think I would have hit my ramp a lot faster, and would have allowed me to do all the things that I wanted to do as a business owner much faster.
What's the difference between like what you do day to day and like what somebody who actually works on Wall Street does?
So I'm not making, and don't, so this is speaking for me specifically. A lot of the times whenever I work with a client, there's very few times I'm making the individual security decision. Um, with me, I like to use third party asset managers to help align their actions to their goals from a risk tolerance standpoint. So I manage the relationship, I manage the strategy, the execution of it. Um, but I'm not saying, hey, this stock looks like a great stock today for us to buy. There are advisors out there that do that. I just personally don't think I can outperform some of these larger asset carriers that have literally hundreds, if not thousands, of people on their team with boots on the ground, diving into the books of these companies, saying, "Hey, this is a great opportunity." I just don't think I can consistently outperform them. So I don't do that pretty much at all. If somebody wants to do something alternatively, yeah, we can look at some things. They want some one-offs. I do help with that, but the folks on Wall Street, as far as a lot of that's institutional type of stuff. I mean, that's just huge volume, just um, just opportunities in a way of doing business that doesn't really translate to the working with the retail space, if that makes sense.
Is that something you'd ever be interested in doing?
I that's not attractive to me. To me, I enjoy, what's your problem? How do we solve it from an individual standpoint or a business owner standpoint? Working for an institution just probably wouldn't um, stimulate my mind as much as, I look at it as kind of like a puzzle piece. And and part of that puzzle is kind of seeing how everything fits together and being able to work with individuals. To me, that's rewarding, right? I have many clients where sit down, prioritize the goals, and we knock out the first wave, and now we reestablish what their goals are. And it's nice to go down the check mark, right? Go down the list and put check marks next to the things that we were able to get done. And that also allows me to go back and say, hey, we've got new tax laws, or um, we have changes in whatever the situation may be. We need to revisit this one because the advice was good 4 years ago, but now rules are different. We need to come up with a new idea, a new strategy for this.
Hmm. Did you ever, I'm sure you heard it, uh, the story of Buffett when he challenged any
Mhm.
stock trader to
Sure.
beat the S&P
Yeah.
500 for a decade, I think it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
And there were just a couple of different guys tried and
Yeah.
completely failed.
Yeah.
Do you ever get that combat as like, why am I going to hire you when I can just throw my money in the S&P 500 and
Sure.
nobody can do better than that anyways?
Yeah. So I don't know the exact number. I think it's somewhere around half. Half the funds do better, half the funds do worse, right? Um, and what I'll say is that different parts of the market do better than other, right? So if you took example, the Nasdaq, right, indice, it's doing better than the S&P 500 for right now. Is that going to happen for perpetuity? No, I mean nobody knows. With that being said, I think where an advisor brings a ton of value to the table is bringing people back to center. I'll speak on a family member of mine, and this family member at whenever COVID hit, market came down, went to cash, never got back in. It's like, well, if you're back in with the amount of money they have, they would be significantly higher than the bottom of COVID, right? So working with an advisor is going to allow you to have that conversation of logic, and understandably so. I always jokingly say I'm pretty logical, except for when it comes to food, right?
You and me
you,
both.
you're like, hey, do you want like half a pound of mozzarella? No. How about if we deep fry it and put marinara next to it? Like, yeah, yeah,
Sounds
that
great.
sounds great. Sign me up for two of them, right? But I think an advisor brings a lot of logic back to the table. And part of our role is to do work around things that you either don't have time to do or the desire to do or the skill set, right? It's not always about the return, so to speak. Sometimes it's about, hey, how do we tie this into trust or inheritance, or how do we reduce tax drag, or how do we just kind of bring back the center our approach to the long-term wealth accumulation strategy. So yeah, I don't obviously Warren Buffett's way more successful financially than I'll ever be. But I also think that he himself and the other research would say that an advisor does bring value to the table, and it's not necessarily on rate of return.
Yeah, and you get to kind of customize their investment based on where they're at and what their goals are. Like for
Sure.
instance, if you're starting a retirement account for somebody in their
Sure.
early 20s, you're going to be way more aggressive and invest in companies that probably have a higher pop rate, right?
Sure.
But also riskier, right? Because they
Sure.
have more time to make up the losses if they have some.
It's exactly right. I mean, you know, what I usually end up settling on is I don't particularly care what strategy you use as long as you're using something. So as long as you have an idea or a philosophy that you're following, um, I'm not saying it's necessarily the most efficient or most effective, but often what happens is people have paralysis through their analysis and they do nothing. Well, nothing is also a decision. And often, again, that family member that I won't mention, they sat back, they were scared, they're like, oh, let's see what happens. Well, you know, we're at all-time market highs, and you can use different tools and strategies to you know not fully participate in the market and have some protection. So yeah, I mean, everybody's going to be different based off of discretionary income, age, risk tolerance. I have people that are in their 40s and they're just 100% against the market. Okay. That's fine. And we'll tell them how to maximize what their unique situation is.
I read Tony Robbins' one book. It was came out maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay.
It was like almost 1,000 pages long.
Yeah.
I guess I listened to it. I didn't read it. I did start reading books more recently, but
Yeah.
I don't think I would read that one front to back. But the one product that he talks about more than any other product in
Yeah.
that book, can you guess what it is? Or do you know this
I
already?
don't know what it is.
It's annuities.
Yeah.
He's like such a fan of
Yeah.
annuities. And he's just like, if you're not in annuities, you're basically being stupid with your money.
Yeah. And just like everything else, what I try to share and what's funny is I'm client facing with a lot of clients, and you'll get people that are adamant against them. You'll have people that are adamant for them. And what I always just try to share with them is that I think it was Einstein that said, like, something along the lines of, if you judged a fish by its ability to climb a tree, you'd think it wasn't a very good fish, right? And I use that same analogy. I twist a little bit, say, hey, if everything looks like a nail or everything looks like a nail when you have only a hammer, right? Or if you're using the wrong tool, it's not the tool's fault. It's the person that's applying that use, right? It's their problem. So, candidly, I love annuities. I sell a ton of them. Are they for everybody? No. Um, are they the only tool that some folks have? Yes. And that's why they only sell them. But that's why, like I had said earlier, you said, like, what would you have done when you first got into business? Having that higher tier of licensing, I can go in and show them, like, here are the strengths and here are the weaknesses behind each strategy. Which one's for you? We'll let you decide. And and I think that's the way it should be.
I'm not completely sure I know what an annuity is. So it basically, from my understanding, is essentially like life insurance, except for you're getting paid out while you're alive.
So, do you want me to explain what it is or what it does? Because there is a significant difference there, and usually it's what it does is what really matters.
Okay, both. Like if you have time. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
how long it's going to take you to get into it.
yeah. No, so broad brush. An annuity is traditionally an income play, and what it does. There's a gentleman by the name of Tom Hegna. He talks about using annuities to eliminate longevity risk. And that's the biggest threat to what most people would say is the biggest threat to most people's retirement. It's not sequence of returns is in there, but one of the big things is if I retire at 65 and I live until 90, is my portfolio going to last that long? And what an annuity does is it eliminates that risk because you have that guaranteed lifetime income for the rest of your life, right? So imagine you buy a property and you get that paycheck every single month guaranteed, backed by in an annuities case, an insurance provider. Okay. As far as so what it does is it creates that consistent paycheck. People that like pensions would like an annuity. People that like Social Security, it hits their check every month, hits their account every month, they would like an annuity. Where people get into trouble is they put too much of their money into it. And I always think of JG Wentworth, right? JG Wentworth, I want my cash back now, right? Well, what happened is somebody took all of their money or a larger portion of what they should have, put it into said income vehicle, and now they don't have any liquidity elsewhere. That's the trap, right? They also can be more expensive. There's providers out there, and the comment sometimes you'll hear is, well, that's too good to be true. And the counter argument is it's not too good to be true, it's too good to be free, which is a different mindset, right? It's because you're paying for something. You're paying for something, whether it's opportunity, whether it's, a fee out of the account, whatever it is. Um, so as far as what annuities can offer versus what like the S&P 500 can, is that, you have the ability of um, indexing against something like an S&P 500, and you can put what they'll call buffers, or I think a fair way to express them is like a safeguard. So you can have a floor, you can have a floor to a certain point. You also usually have some sort of cap on the upside, right? If we're limiting your downside, you usually have some sort of cap on the upside. Not always, but often that is the case. So for those things, often you're paying a fee, not every time. But again, that insurance carrier is not going to allow you to have protection, or in other words, they're not going to take on risk without what? Without consideration, without money, without a fee, right? So again, would I own one as a 37-year-old that does pretty well? Not right now at this stage in my life. Um, you know, when I'm getting ready to retire, I would highly consider one and most likely buy one.
Hmm. I mean, he had a bunch of wild takes in that book, one of which was to buy nickels
Okay.
because a nickel is worth more than the 5 cents that we charge for it.
Okay.
So I guess if you ever need to like
Yeah.
melt it down or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
Isn't it illegal to melt money there? So
I
I
think
don't
I don't know. I always find that as an interesting argument. I'll meet people. Well, I just invest in gold. It's like, well, if you're talking that we're in a bartering system, we've got really big problems. Okay, you've got this gold to barter with, or precious metal to barter with. There's Life has changed in the United States if we're at that point. So I don't know. Can't do everything for everybody.
Are you excited that crypto is getting into your space?
Um, I, I'm excited, talking from a personal level, I'm excited that you have new innovative things that are coming out. I think that that's a good win for a lot of people. I'll be the first to tell you I don't overly understand the crypto space. I've read it. I could probably not verbatim, but I could tell you, what the definition of it is. I'm more of a person that likes to learn by doing, right? I learn by muscle memory, not by reading. So I understand, like, if I had to pass a test, I could tell you all the things about it, but I don't really understand the application of it. I don't see how it runs, I guess, if that makes sense. So, I know a car has an engine. I don't know how the engine works, I guess is the analogy I would use.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out this episode. I have just recently revamped my website. Check it out, ianhoover.com, just my name. You can go there, check out what I've been working on, and also collaborate with me. There's a form to fill out on there if you want to be a guest on the show, or if you want to schedule some one on one time with me. Swing over to my website, fill out the form, and let's collaborate. Thanks for tuning in. So you haven't dug into like the blockchain and how it actually works.
I understand conceptually, I know how it works, but I'm a curious person, and I would be curious, like, okay, well, what tools are you using to make sure that the blockchain works, and how does the blockchain verification system work, and all that stuff. So, um, yeah, I haven't dived into that point.
I was such a skeptic for a long time because I really thought it was like a fugazi,
Yeah.
like it was,
Again, I gotcha.
yeah, like this is some imaginary monopoly money that
Hmm.
we're throwing real money at it. And,
Hmm.
but now, I mean, it's definitely to the point where there's no way that's possible.
Yeah.
Like at least the big coins, like
Yeah.
the stuff you're playing with now is Bitcoin,
Yeah.
Ethereum.
Yep.
There's rumors that there's a couple more that are going to trickle in
Yeah.
this upcoming year, and obviously the new administration's real strong on crypto. But
Sure.
what do you think that like crypto is kind of still in its infancy stage, or
I'm not educated enough to talk about
Yeah.
it, honestly. Like you had mentioned briefly ago, I have some money into it. It's kind of one of those things where I know it's out there, I know that it exists, but I'm not educated enough to touch intelligently about it. I would be more in the teach me phase than the teaching phase.
So like your company's not like really teaching you about the general crypto and like what it's bringing to the table.
Yeah, if I wanted to attend that, I would be able to. Yeah, but that's not something where, just with what my role is and it's not a big part of my business. How about I answer it that way? So it's not fruitful for me to dive into it.
What's the number one product you've sold over your career?
Ooh. I mean, over the 14 years, probably insurance and annuities, life insurance and annuities. I got my advisory license and I want to say 19 it was. I don't know, it's on my FINRA. But yeah, so and again it kind of goes back to um the prior firm that I worked for didn't have that capability, right? If I had what I have access to today, I would probably be split pretty evenly amongst the three, probably four main revenue sources, which is financial planning, the asset advisory fees, the life insurance, and the annuities.
Hmm.
I would be pretty maybe maybe weighted a little bit towards the investment side.
Do you think this is your lifelong career?
I know it is.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it just gives me all the things that I want. It's a good lifestyle. I get to have control of my schedule. I get to help people. I get to mentor people that are getting into the business. Gives me a kind of a platform to be able to help students to help them understand that there's more than one way to have a future, right? It's not necessarily all I got to go to school and I got to get my degree and that's the only way I'll be successful. There are alternative ways to be successful in this world.
Very cool. What's your favorite business book?
Mm. There's a couple of them that I enjoy. I like there's one that was called Raving Fan that I read. I forget who the author is, and the premise of the book is just about creating people that want to talk about being successful, or they want to talk about the experience and level of service that you provided. I think that one's a strong one. I think sometimes when you deal with the public, you can kind of get snake bitten a little bit in the sense that, why is this person calling me again? Or why is this happening? And it's like, well, for me, it's like, well, I'm handling their money. I understand that they have concerns, right? So I always try to treat people like my family, try to treat them like my grandmother, try to give them that fair balance and that good service that people would expect. There's some concept style books. Again, we talked a little bit about Tom Hegna. I've read several of his books. There's one that's called Paychecks and Playchecks. Really, a lot of where I draw motivation and ideas is talking to other advisors that are successful. I think the financial services industry does a great job saying, "Hey, there's enough people out there. We're not competitors. There's enough people out there where we can all be successful. Here's how I do it." So there's some different industry specific type of trainings or motivations or business development stuff. I'll do, I guess the new cool term is like micro learning. So I'll watch those, 2, 3 minute videos, whatever it is. I really make a focus on trying to learn from people that are more successful than me. Personal pet peeve, and I always jokingly say this, it's like somebody probably has that uncle somewhere that's been divorced 4 times, and for whatever reason, you wouldn't go to that uncle, or hopefully you don't go to that uncle for relationship advice, right? It's like, well, you've been divorced 3, 4 times, your kids hate you. Hey, what would you do in this situation, right? And so I try to look at the opposite of that, like, hey, if you have what I want, I'm not jealous of you. But teach me, right? It's like in the pursuit of happiness. He's like, what do you do and how do you do it? Right.
Such a
So
great movie.
it is. And, to me, that's kind of like my book, right? To be able to, I'll get more from that, interaction. And I try to grab it and apply it. So.
That's interesting that you can go to somebody who's more successful than you and they'll actually give you the time of day. It's
Oh,
not like
not
that.
everyone. A lot of them will. Not everyone. Don't get me wrong. And I don't know if it's like a Southwestern PA thing where, or maybe I'm just really charming. No, um, but no, what I think is like if you can, ask people, how they did it. I think people like talking about themselves, and if you pull it out of them, I think that's a great way. It's you got to figure out a way to do it that's beneficial to both parties, right? And yeah, in my industry, I think there's a lot of people out there that have that give back type of mentality and attitude. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you're good. My industry is completely opposite.
That's interesting.
Like the top producers do not want to help because
Yeah.
now they created more competition for themselves.
Did they?
Like when I first when I first got licensed, that was with a company called Northwood Realty.
Yeah.
They're now Berkshire Hathaway in Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
and they're one agent that was he was one of the top producers in the
Yeah.
company,
Yeah.
but his like parents were like part owners of it or something along
Hmm.
those lines, and so like that was one of my first things is like I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm gonna reach out to this guy, and I just shot him an email like, hey,
Right.
can I come like run your errands for you,
Yeah.
like just anything I can do
Right.
to learn from you.
Right.
And he basically wrote back a nice way of telling me to fuck off.
Nice.
He's just like, yeah,
Nice.
kid, good luck with that,
Yeah.
Now that was
That's funny.
slightly before like the team
Yeah.
atmosphere came around, which now I think if
Yeah.
you did that, you'd probably be like, well, come work for me and
Right.
I'll take half your commission for
Right.
so many deals, and
Right.
that'll be your way of breaking into the industry. But I was just taken back because like
Yeah.
that's the first thing I thought to do is like, why don't I go ask somebody who
Right.
knows what they're doing?
Exactly. That's in the trenches. It's funny because I did that, in a sales organization. They're not shy about who the successful people are. And I remember I went through, how I found my mentor. I went through top five advisors. I was like, I'm calling, Saturday morning, I'm struggling for appointments. I know these guys are successful, right? I called all five of them, right? Instead of calling prospects and suspects, I called them. And the one guy called me back. His name's Bob, a good friend of mine to this day. Still consider him a mentor. And, he called me back and, we talked and, I was probably fortunate to some degree here, knocking on wood, that he, is a great human being in his own right. And he's one of those people you'd invite to the family functions and he wants to see everybody succeed. He doesn't have that idea of, it's mine, 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 mine. Right. So yeah, and like I said, our industry, um, there's a ton of articles you can read, YouTube videos you can watch on anything from case design, strategies, implementation to marketing, business practicing, all that stuff. A lot of people are very forthright in trying to help people be successful.
Very cool.
Hmm.
What's retirement look like for you?
Me personally,
Yeah,
I don't know if I'd ever truly retire. Just because even this 4 day, weekend that I just had, once I hit like that third or fourth day, I'm like, okay,
ready to get back
ready to
at
get
it.
back at it,
Yeah.
right? So for me, retirement is more about just freedom, in the sense of being able to do what I want when I want. I jokingly say that I'd love to get like an RV, and I know you're not going to like this answer. Follow the Steelers across the United States, eating my way from one town to the next, right? I think that would be super cool. But for me, I think impacting your community in whatever way is good for you, I think is good. I think um, kind of just showing people like, hey, this is how I grew up, and you can do it too, right? I think that's very important, in whatever way that is, whether it's time, money, combination of both, a message. Um, but for me, it's probably, just because I don't have a wife and kids at this point, just freedom as far as doing what I want when I want, and not checking my bank account whenever I spend some money. You know what I mean? To me, it's important to, as expensive as things are. I was just at the Penguin game last night. I think I spent like 500 at the game, not even on the tickets. But
Did you buy a jersey?
no, not even. It was like, hot dog here. We're making friends with people in our aisle, so I bought
Bought
them.
around.
I bought them, and
Yeah.
it's like, you buy a double down there. It's with a tip, it's $25.
Yeah, that's
So I'm
rough.
like, Jesus,
It's expensive to go to events
it
nowadays for
is.
sure.
It
Everything's
is.
expensive nowadays.
Yeah. But that's for me, like I said, that's probably what it kind of comes down to is just having the ability to do what I want when I want and not checking my checking account. And I probably shouldn't say that as a financial advisor, but having a positive impact on the kids. That's an important piece of it.
One of my favorite family stories is it was Christmas, right? Or I think it was COVID year Christmas actually, because I
Yeah.
remember mass being involved. And I took my a couple of my nieces in a car ride,
Okay.
and we were going to like Walmart or something,
Hmm.
and they were like 5 minutes in there, I hear them whispering out of nowhere. They're like, "Hey, Uncle Ian, are you rich?"
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I was just like, "Well, I guess that depends on your definition of rich,
Yeah.
right?" Like,
We know how real estate is.
you know.
I get it.
And they're like, "Well,
Yeah.
what do you mean?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, I mean,
Yeah.
what I think is rich is probably different than what that you think is rich, and vice
Perspective
versa."
matters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Having $100 bill, a kid thinks you're probably the wealthiest human on earth.
exactly, yeah.
Meanwhile, it's like I just said, 4 drinks on it at the paint can.
Like I really think that to me, rich, wealthy, whatever word you want to use,
Yeah.
is literally having the freedom to do what.
That's it.
And this is what I told them. I was like, being wealthy and being rich is having the freedom to do whatever you want, whenever you want to do, without anybody ever being able to tell you where to go or what to do or anything like
Hmm.
that. And in that scenario, no, I'm not there yet, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
I still got to go to work. I
Yep.
still got to
Obligations,
recruit
responsibilities.
and
Oh yeah.
train and develop
Yep.
my agents like
Yep.
and until that day is gone, then no, I'm not, in my opinion, I'm not at that level.
Completely agree.
So that's how I teach
Yeah.
my nieces and nephews.
I
But
think that's fair. I don't think it's a dollar number. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah, we could all say, oh, if I had 10 million in my account, I'd be fine. But it's more, again, to me about just having that freedom and that, uh, having that flexibility.
one more quick story, and then I'm gonna let you go. And
Sure.
it's because you're gonna get a kick out of this. So when my nephew was 12 years old, he used to come down every summer to see my mom.
Okay.
He was probably about 6'1" at 12 years old,
Wow.
and we played basketball, and
Yeah.
I whooped him.
What are you? 6'3", 6'4"? How
No,
tall are
I'm
you?
6 foot.
You're 6 foot.
Actually, I'm
Are
probably
you?
a little short. I think
Are
I'm
you?
shrinking in my old age. I think I'm
I
like
thought
five
you were
eleven
taller
now.
than
No, that's as tall
that.
as I am. I'm the runt of my family.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he comes
So he's
down.
towering over you at 12 years.
Yeah, he's about my
Towering.
height at 12
Yeah.
years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I whooped him in basketball,
There you
right?
go.
And then so I talked some smack. I was like, "You come
Yeah.
down next summer, I'll do the same thing,"
Yeah.
right? I hopped into some of his Instagram rooms with his friends and talked
Yeah.
some shit
There
to
you go.
him,
I
all this
like it.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, kid doesn't come down for like 4 years, right?
Yeah.
Because he's football camps, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever, never
Setting
gets
the
done.
weights.
He finally comes down, and now he's like 6'5", 240
You
pounds.
got that ass beat this time.
And he's talking smack, right?
Yeah.
My mom's like, "Hey, he wants to play basketball with you." I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh shit, why did I talk all that smack?" Right? I'm,
Yeah.
I'm so mad at myself.
Yeah.
And so then I'm like, I got the perfect game plan. I was like, "Okay, tell him I'll pick him up at 5 a.m."
Hmm.
I took him to we played basketball 5:30 in the morning at
Yeah.
Bridgeville.
Yeah.
I took him, we played basketball 5:30. I matched him up on the guy who runs
Yeah.
nonstop the
Oh
whole
yeah.
time for
Yeah.
2 hours.
Yeah.
And then as soon as the game was done, I walked over to him. Let's go, youngin.
Let's go.
Come
Let's
on.
go
And he's
play.
like, "What are you talking?
I like
I'm
this.
so
I
tired,
like the
right?"
strategy.
I
Yes.
beat him 15-4
Okay.
because he was so tired.
Yeah.
I really just shot outside shots on
Yeah.
him, right? Because
Yeah.
I mean, all he had to do is take me down in the post. I
Right.
mean,
You weren't
nothing
gonna
I could do there.
nothing.
He just has the size. But I beat him 15-4,
Yeah.
and I told my mom afterwards, I was like,
I
I'm
retire.
I'm retired. I'm never playing him again. He was so strong. Like
Yeah.
like when he did back
Yeah.
me down, there's nothing I could do.
Nothing.
But I just had the perfect game plan, the perfect situation. I smacked him, and I'll talk smack for the rest of my life,
Yeah.
and I will
Listen,
never play him again.
it's what it is. When you hang up the cleats, you hang up the cleats. You know.
So I thought you get a crack at
I
that one.
love it.
But
Yeah.
hey, thanks so
Good
much for
strategy. Yeah.
coming and
I
doing
appreciate you
this.
having me. Yeah.
And we'll have
Nice
to do
time.
this again sometime.
Anytime you want me here.
Everybody, Dave Trafican hit him up. What's the best way to get in contact with you?
I always say reach out to Ian. He knows how to get a hold of me.
Okay, reach out to me. I'll connect you with Dave. If you're young and you want to get
Yeah.
into becoming a financial advisor, there's no better guy to talk to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thanks for your time,
Awesome.
Dave.
Yeah, appreciate you. Thank you.